There are ideas in science that don't disappear when they're questioned. They linger quietly. They get repeated often enough that doubt feels unnecessary. They settle into textbooks, public policy, medicine, and everyday conversations as if they've earned permanence. Some of these ideas shaped how children were educated. Some influenced what people ate, how they raised families, and how governments made decisions. And by 2025, science could no longer pretend they still held up. This is not a list of discoveries or mistakes that suddenly appeared in one year. In many cases, the cracks had been visible for a long time. But 2025 was the point where defending these claims stopped being intellectually honest. The evidence finally outweighed the narrative. Replication failed too many times. Internal documents surfaced, official retractions were issued, and what had once been treated as still debated became impossible to justify. The examples start quietly, almost harmless, but each one carries more weight than the last, and the final example nearly rewrote the laws of physics themselves, until one small mistake destroyed the entire claim. 10. The Mozart effect. For years, the idea sounded almost too good to question, that listening to Mozart could make you smarter. Parents played classical music to infants. Schools embraced it as a low-cost cognitive boost. The belief spread so widely that it felt less like a hypothesis and more like common sense. What people believed was that music, specifically Mozart, could increase intelligence in a meaningful and lasting way. What actually happened was far more limited. The original research showed a short-term improvement on a narrow spatial task, lasting minutes, not months or years. Later studies found similar effects from almost anything that improved mood or alertness, silence, other music, even a cup of coffee. By 2025, large meta-analyses made the situation clear. There was no durable cognitive benefit, no lasting increase in intelligence, no reason to keep presenting the effect as real. The claim survived because it was comforting, non-threatening, and easy to sell. But by 2025, it could no longer be defended as anything more than a misunderstanding that had gone uncorrected for too long. And this was only the beginning. 9. Power posing? The idea behind power posing was simple, elegant, and persuasive. That adopting certain body postures could alter hormone levels, increase confidence, and improve performance in high-stakes situations. It spread quickly, especially in corporate culture and leadership training. The claim promised control over internal states through something as basic as posture. What people believed was that body language could biologically rewire confidence. What turned out to be wrong was the mechanism itself. Replication studies failed to show consistent hormonal changes. Behavioral effects were inconsistent or absent. The confidence boost, when present at all, appeared to be subjective rather than physiological. By 2025, psychology had fully absorbed the replication crisis surrounding the claim. Power posing might influence how someone feels in the moment, but the original biological story collapsed. It wasn't fraud, it wasn't malice. It was a compelling narrative that moved faster than evidence. The next case would show what happens when narratives collide with massive real-world data. 8. Google Flu Trends. When Google Flu Trends was introduced, it felt revolutionary. By tracking search queries, Google claimed it could predict flu outbreaks faster than traditional health agencies. At first, it seemed to work. And that success created confidence that algorithms could replace epidemiology. What people believed was that big data, at scale, could outthink human-designed public health systems. What actually went wrong was more subtle. Search behavior changed with media coverage. Public fear altered query patterns. The model began detecting attention, not illness. By the time it was retired, the system was sometimes doubling real flu estimates. By 2025, it stood as a permanent cautionary example, not of bad data, but of misplaced trust in scale alone. The belief that more data automatically means better insight could no longer be defended, and the next claim would challenge something even more fundamental. 7. Cold fusion. Cold fusion promised something extraordinary: nuclear energy without extreme heat, clean, abundant power without radioactive waste. In 1989, the announcement stunned the world. If true, it would have changed civilization. What people believed was that conventional physics had overlooked a quiet shortcut. What followed instead was decades of failed replication, experiments that couldn't be reproduced, results that vanished under scrutiny. Cold fusion lingered in a gray zone, not proven, not entirely abandoned. But by 2025, the situation had hardened. Improved measurement techniques, deeper understanding of nuclear processes, and the absence of reproducible evidence closed the door. The claim survived on hope, not data, and by 2025, hope was no longer enough. What comes next involves human behavior, power, and authority. 6. The Stanford Prison Experiment. Few psychological studies became as famous as this one. The claim was that ordinary people, placed in positions of authority, would quickly become abusive. It shaped how society understood power, obedience, and cruelty. It influenced education, activism, and even legal arguments. What people believed was that the behavior emerged naturally. What later analysis revealed was guidance, coaching, and manipulation behind the scenes. Participants were nudged toward specific behaviors. The outcome was not as spontaneous as originally presented. By 2025, access to full recordings and archives made the situation unavoidable. The study could no longer stand as evidence for its original claim. The idea wasn't entirely wrong. Authority does influence behavior. But the experiment itself could no longer be defended as proof, and now the stakes begin to rise sharply. 5. Sugar industry-funded nutrition studies. For decades, dietary guidelines focused heavily on fat. Sugar remained comparatively untouched. What people believed was that the science clearly pointed in one direction. What later emerged was a network of industry funding, quietly shaping research outcomes. Internal documents showed sugar companies sponsoring studies that downplayed their products' health risks. By 2025, large-scale reviews and transparency reforms made those early conclusions indefensible. This wasn't a single bad study, it was a structural distortion of science, and its consequences affected millions of lives. The next case is quieter, but brutally instructive. 4. Mars Climate Orbiter. The Mars Climate Orbiter wasn't a theory, it was hardware. A spacecraft designed to study Mars' atmosphere, lost because of a unit conversion error. One team used metric units, another used imperial. The spacecraft entered the atmosphere too low and burned up. By 2025, this failure had become an engineering parable, not about intelligence or ambition, but about how complex systems punish small mistakes. The belief that redundancy alone guarantees safety could no longer be defended, and now we move into territory where science, health, and public trust collided. 3. The Vaccine Autism Paper. One paper did more damage than its authors could have imagined. It claimed a link between vaccines and autism. The study was small. The methods were flawed. Conflicts of interest were hidden. It was eventually retracted, but the belief persisted. By 2025, after decades of population-level studies involving millions of children, the claim had no scientific ground left. Genetics explained autism. Epidemiology disproved the link. Biology offered no mechanism. What remained was the aftermath. By 2025, defending the claim was no longer possible, even rhetorically. And the next collapse struck at the foundations of biology itself. 2. Arsenic-based life in 2010, a claim electrified science. That a bacterium could substitute arsenic for phosphorus, one of life's essential elements. If true, it would redefine what life could be. What people believed was that biology had revealed a radically new form of life. What followed was replication failure after replication failure. By 2025, the journal officially retracted the paper. Not revised, not debated, retracted. The claim was gone. And now, the final example, the most shocking. 1. Faster-than-light neutrinos. For a brief moment, physics stood on the edge of collapse. Particles appeared to travel faster than light. If true, Einstein's relativity would fall. The announcement was cautious. The analysis was public. The scientific process did exactly what it should. And by 2025, the story was complete. A loose cable, a timing error. The particles never exceeded light speed. The claim failed not because science was reckless, but because scrutiny works. Extraordinary claims don't survive extraordinary examination. Science does not progress because it is flawless. It progresses because flawed ideas eventually collapse under scrutiny. Some collapse quickly, Others take decades. 2025 was not the year science failed. It was the year science stopped defending the indefensible. And the unsettling truth is this: some of the ideas we defend today are already beginning to crack. We just haven't reached their breaking point yet.